At around 9 a.m., US President Donald Trump released a statement addressing the growing crisis in the Middle East. In the message, he warned that if Iran attempts to disrupt the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, the United States will respond with overwhelming force and strike back far harder than before.
We hope we don't have any of that. And again, if they do that, if they play that game, we're going to hit them at a level that they have not seen before.
That warning comes at a moment when tensions around one of the world's most critical shipping routes are rising rapidly. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow passage connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean, but despite its size, it carries an enormous share of global energy supply. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil trade passes through this corridor every single day, making it one of the most strategically important waterways on the planet. Because of that, any threat to shipping in this region immediately sends shockwaves through global energy markets and military planning. Oil tankers, naval patrols, and surveillance aircraft constantly move through these waters, all focused on keeping the route open. But Iran has repeatedly suggested that it could use this choke point as leverage during conflicts with the United States and its allies by threatening shipping lanes or targeting oil infrastructure. Tehran hopes to pressure global markets and force political concessions. However, making that kind of threat also carries enormous risks. The moment the world's oil supply appears to be in danger, major powers respond quickly to secure the route. So in this video, we're going to break down why the Strait of Hormuz controls such a huge portion of global oil supply, how Iran tries to pressure this route during conflicts, and why threatening this corridor can quickly trigger a massive military response. To understand why threats around the Strait of Hormuz immediately trigger global reactions, it is important to look at the geography of the route itself. The strait is a narrow waterway that connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and then to the open Indian Ocean. At its narrowest point, the entire passage is only about 33 kilometers wide. Inside that space, the shipping lanes used by oil tankers are even tighter, with only a few kilometers separating inbound and outbound traffic. That means a large portion of the world's energy supply moves through a corridor that is physically smaller than many major rivers, yet it carries cargo volumes that influence global markets every single day. Oil produced in several Gulf countries must pass through this channel before reaching international markets. Tankers leaving Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and parts of Iran all move through this route on their way toward Asia, Europe, and North America. The impact of this flow becomes clearer when looking at the scale of tanker traffic. Every day, dozens of very large crude carriers move through the strait, transporting millions of barrels of oil. Many of these ships are among the largest vessels ever built, carrying cargo that can supply entire national economies. When these tankers leave the Persian Gulf, they spread out across global trade routes, delivering energy to major consumers such as China, India, Japan, South Korea, and European markets. A disruption in this corridor therefore affects not just one region, but multiple continents that rely on consistent oil deliveries. This constant movement of energy cargo makes the strait one of the most sensitive locations in the global economy. Even small disruptions can create immediate market reactions. If shipping slows down, insurance costs for tanker companies rise. If insurance costs increase, transportation becomes more expensive. Those increases are quickly reflected in global oil prices and energy contracts traded on international markets. Because oil still powers transportation networks, heavy industry, aviation, and shipping, fluctuations connected to this single waterway can influence fuel costs across the world. Another factor that makes the Strait of Hormuz so critical is the lack of easy alternatives. Some pipelines exist that can bypass the route, but they can only handle a portion of the total export volume coming from Gulf producers. Most exporting countries in the region still rely heavily on maritime shipping through the strait. If that passage becomes unsafe or restricted, redirecting the same amount of oil through alternative infrastructure becomes extremely difficult and far slower. For this reason, the waterway has been treated as a strategic choke point for decades. Naval forces from multiple countries patrol the surrounding waters, monitoring shipping lanes and watching for threats that could interfere with tanker traffic. Surveillance aircraft regularly fly over the region, and maritime patrol ships track vessel movements to ensure that commercial traffic continues moving without interruption. Because so much global energy moves through this single corridor, any threat to the Strait of Hormuz quickly escalates beyond a regional issue. A disruption here would not only affect Middle Eastern producers, but also major industrial economies that rely on imported oil. Governments, financial markets, and military planners therefore monitor the situation in the strait constantly, knowing that instability in this narrow passage can ripple outward across global trade, energy prices, and international security. Iran's strategy in the Strait of Hormuz is not designed around fighting large naval fleets directly. Instead, it focuses on creating enough disruption and uncertainty that commercial shipping becomes risky. The main objective is to pressure global energy markets and force outside powers to react to instability in the region. Because the strait is narrow and heavily trafficked, even limited interference can quickly raise concerns among tanker operators and insurers. One of the most commonly discussed tactics involves fast attack boats operated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. These small, high-speed vessels are designed to move quickly through the narrow waters of the Gulf and the Strait. They can approach large ships at close range and operate in groups, sometimes referred to as swarm tactics. The idea behind this method is not necessarily to sink large warships directly, but to overwhelm defenses through numbers and unpredictable movement. Another method involves anti-ship missiles positioned along Iran's coastline and nearby islands. Several launch sites overlook the shipping lanes that pass through the Strait of Hormuz. From these positions, missiles can theoretically target vessels traveling through the corridor. These systems are part of Iran's broader anti-access strategy, which aims to create zones where enemy forces must operate carefully due to the possibility of sudden attacks. Naval mines represent another serious concern for commercial traffic. Mines can be deployed from small boats or other vessels and left in shipping lanes where they pose a threat to passing tankers. Even the suspicion that mines may be present is often enough to slow shipping traffic dramatically. Clearing mines from a narrow maritime route requires specialized naval units and can take significant time, which means even a limited mining operation can temporarily disrupt trade. Iran has also invested heavily in unmanned systems and surveillance capabilities in the region. Drones and coastal radar stations can monitor vessel movements through the strait and provide targeting information if tensions escalate. These systems allow Iranian forces to track commercial shipping patterns and identify high-value vessels moving through the corridor. Despite these capabilities, maintaining sustained control over the Strait of Hormuz would be extremely difficult. The waterway is constantly monitored by international naval forces and surveillance systems. Any attempt to seriously disrupt tanker traffic would likely trigger immediate military responses designed to keep the corridor open and protect commercial shipping. This dynamic is what makes threats against the strait so sensitive. Iran can create short-term disruption using asymmetric tactics, but prolonged interference with global oil shipping would invite rapid escalation from countries whose economies depend on the continuous flow of energy through the region. The United States has historically maintained a strong naval presence in and around the Persian Gulf. Aircraft carriers, guided missile destroyers, and surveillance aircraft regularly operate in the surrounding waters. These forces are supported by maritime patrol aircraft, intelligence systems, and satellite monitoring that track activity across the region. When potential threats to shipping appear, these assets allow military planners to respond quickly and coordinate defensive operations. One common response involves escort missions for commercial tankers. Naval vessels accompany oil carriers as they move through the strait, providing radar coverage and missile defense against potential attacks. These escort operations help reassure shipping companies that their vessels can pass through the route safely. Warships equipped with advanced radar systems are able to detect incoming missiles, drones, or fast-moving boats and react before they reach commercial targets. Carrier strike groups also play an important role in maintaining control of the region. An aircraft carrier functions as a mobile airbase capable of launching fighter aircraft, surveillance planes, and support aircraft over a large area. These aircraft can patrol shipping lanes, monitor coastal activity, and respond rapidly if hostile actions occur. The presence of carrier aviation extends defensive coverage far beyond the immediate location of naval ships. Another major component of the response is maritime surveillance. Aircraft designed for ocean patrol fly regular missions above the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, observing ship movements and identifying unusual activity. These patrols help detect potential threats such as mine deployment, aggressive small boat maneuvers, or missile launch preparations along the coastline. Early detection gives naval forces time to intercept or neutralize threats before they reach commercial vessels. International cooperation is also common during periods of tension. Several allied countries maintain naval units in the region or contribute ships to multinational patrol missions. These combined operations expand surveillance coverage and create a larger protective presence along the shipping route. The goal is to ensure that no single country has to secure the entire corridor alone, because global energy markets depend on uninterrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Allowing the route to close would have immediate economic consequences for many nations. For that reason, military planners treat any attempt to interfere with tanker traffic as a situation that requires rapid stabilization.